Legally in Love, written and narrated by C. Taylor, edited to meet YouTube guidelines. To purchase the unedited book, please click the link in the description. Chapter 8a. 2 meals later, they were back in a position which he learned was one of her favorites. He preferred seeing her face, but this was a great warm-up before he would turn her over. Edited. He gently pressed. "Mickey! Mickey! Mickey!" she screamed, pulled off him, and scrambled to the other side of the bed. She turned to face him, grabbed one of the blankets on the bed, pulled it over her lower body, tight around her waist. Her face went pale. Her eyes no longer dark, they were sharp, focused, wild, and darting from him to around the room like she had right after he told her they were married. What had just happened? Whatever it was, he had a sickening feeling he wasn't going to like what caused her reaction. He moved to catch her gaze wherever she looked until her eyes settled on him. She was shaking. He could see it. "Emma, talk to me," he urged gently. She shrank away from him, pulled the blanket higher and tighter against herself, but didn't say a thing, her eyes darting toward the door and back to him. He was torn. He wanted to go to her, but he had the feeling if he moved from in front of the door, she'd make a break for it. He had to keep her in his room and find some way of getting her to tell him what was wrong. His hands were clenched into fists at his side, feeling helpless and desperately out of his depth. He knew something was wrong. Very, very wrong. One sickening thought explained all her behaviors. Did Christian know? Why didn't he say? He wasn't sure what to do, what to say. He didn't want to make her distress worse, but he was desperate to touch her, to help her, to get her to reconnect to him. He took a deep breath to calm down before he spoke. "When did it happen?" He asked as calmly as he could, careful to be neutral. He tried to remember everything, anything Christian told him about helping Andi. Her eyes were cold and kept blinking. The sound came from her, weak and desperate like an animal trapped and injured. Her hands tightened at the blanket. Oh, he messed this up. He would never forgive himself. "When I was taken." Her last words trembled as her body shook harder. She broke eye contact and looked at the bed. "I was in a training session. It was barely more than a whisper. I already had a buyer. I wasn't supposed to be used, but I didn't know what that meant. One of the main trainers was using an aid on me, and before I knew what was happening, he... She broke off. Her mouth kept moving, but no sound. Her eyes moved around the room like she was watching something. A strong urge to vomit hit him hard. He swallowed down the bile rising in his throat. He moved onto the bed and reached out his hand, praying she would take it. She flinched away, eyes darting to the door. He froze. She didn't bolt. He kept his hand extended for her, didn't move closer, and waited. It took her several minutes. Eventually, she took his hand and let him pull her into his lap. He rested against the headboard, arms around her. "It really hurt. I didn't like it." Her voice was small. It came out in barely a whisper. He settled against him. He could feel the tension all through her body. He just held her, feeling helpless and angry. This was a different feeling from when he thought she volunteered with some guy. This man had forced her and hurt her. He didn't allow his mind to start planning the harm he wished he could inflict on the creep that would hurt a young girl, and focused on staying calm. That was the only thing he could remember from what little Christian had told him about how he helped Andi. Her abuse had been much worse than Emma's. Her family started abusing her when she was much younger. They then sold her when she no longer interested them, but still young enough to be profitable. Everything about it had made him sick. It was always understood that Emma was freed before anything happened to her. "I'm so sorry, Emma. I didn't know." No one knew, not even Andi. "I never told anyone, and when the doctors didn't say anything, I forgot it happened until you touched me there." Her voice was monotone, like she was describing a movie. He really hoped it didn't mean what it sounded like. He didn't loosen his hold on her, just held her while she talked, or stayed silent, or whatever she needed. She finally started to relax against him. He pulled a blanket over them and continued to hold her until her breathing told him she was asleep. What the hell was he supposed to do? He needed to learn how to help her, but he was sure she wouldn't want him to speak with Christian about it. The problem was Christian was the only person he trusted with this. He felt lost and desperate. He carefully removed one arm from her, ran his hand through his hair, and leaned his head back on his headboard. Hours later, he woke, still reeling from what Emma had shared with him. Only him. He started to feel stiff from all their activity. He was sure she would be in much worse shape. He got an idea that would make them both feel much better. He eased away from her, slipped into the bathroom, and started filling his tub. He was mostly a shower man, but knew Emma enjoyed soaking, so made sure to include a good one in his bathroom. He justified it by reasoning most women like them, but now that he could be honest, it was always for her. He added some Epsom salt for both of them. While it was filling, he returned to Emma, knelt by the bed, and gently stroked her hair. She stirred, eyes fluttered open, and after a moment, he was rewarded with her brilliant, drowsy smile. Relief that she seemed mostly okay brought a smile to his face. "Would you join me in the bath?" he asked gently. Her smile widened as she stretched awake and nodded. She enthusiastically pushed the covers off and swung her legs over the edge of the bed. He saw her flinch when she tried to stand. "Whoa, that's a lot." He immediately took her arm. "I know, I'm sorry. I thought a bath might do us both some good." "You're stiff too?" His eyes grew large. "Oh, yeah." He helped her up and led her into the bathroom. He held her hand while she stepped in, then stepped in behind her. He settled her back to his chest and started stroking her arm with a washcloth. "About what you told me." He felt her stiffen immediately. He kept stroking her arm, gliding the water over her skin. "I just want you to know I need to talk with Christian about it. He's talked with me about how he helped Andi through all of her issues, and there isn't anyone else I trust." She flinched and started to pull away. He tightened his hands on her shoulders and started to gently massage. He heard her breathing start to deepen and get irregular. "I don't want him to know, and I'm not sure Andi would ever forgive me." He knew her fears were completely wrong, but it helped to make sense of why she never said anything. "Christian once told me he was concerned more happened to you than what you said. His only wish would be that you told him earlier. As for Andi, I can't imagine she'd ever be mad at you for this. She cried for weeks over missing you after we moved to school. Christian was about to move back, but she wouldn't let him." He felt her stop resisting and relax back against him. "It doesn't have to be right away. We can take it slow," he offered. She stiffened again. "And by it, you mean just that area, not all the other intimacy, right?" He chuckled. "Yes." He felt her relax again. "Oh, thank you." He picked up the cloth again, stroked her arms and back. She moaned in pleasure. That reminded him. "Didn't you say you studied romantic massage?" She moaned as her hands went to his thighs. She added pressure and rubbed down towards his knees, then massaged back up. "I can't get too romantic from this position, but I can at least help with your soreness like you are for me. In this together, hmm? I'm not an expert yet, but I've heard that's why people get married." She was still working on his legs. It felt wonderful. "Are you sure you're okay with being married?" He'd been trying to avoid the question, keep her from even thinking about it, but the real world was going to intrude on their fantasy land soon. He needed to make sure he wouldn't lose her in a few hours. "If I'm honest, and I don't want to put any pressure on you because I'm fine on my own, but you're the only person I could do this with." She went silent, and he could feel her slightly tense. What she said matched exactly how he'd felt since they'd first met. He closed his arms around her, put his face right by her ear, and rocked her. "Same," was all he could say. Edited for content. It was 6 o'clock Monday morning. They both had to go to work, and she would need to go to her condo to get ready. They had been intimate twice more since she told him about it. Their passion still strong, dark haze for both of them was still easily triggered. He hoped it would be enough for her to return to him willingly after her work. Would their bond change once the outside world intruded on the world inside these four walls? Could he even bear to let her out of his arms? He couldn't wait any longer. Neither of them could be late for work. He brushed the hair away from her forehead and felt her stir. She looked up at him and smiled. The fact that he had won her trust again, enough for her to feel so relaxed with him, he took as a huge husbandly win. He was her husband. She was his wife. They would be apart during the day and back together tonight, just 9 hours away. Want to meet for lunch? 9 hours was way too long. Her smile stayed, but her face turned confused. Then her eyes grew big, realizing what he meant. It's Monday! She bounded out of bed and rushed to find her clothes. I have to go home and change. He watched her from bed and smiled. You need to go to your condo to change. You are home, he reminded. A situation we should correct today. Emma froze. We're married. I have to recuse myself from the case. Oh, I am not looking forward to that. If you want to just quit entirely, you could use the rest of the day to get everything moved out of your condo. I don't want to boast, but I'm currently making a pretty good living. She pulled her shirt on and chuckled. You'd like me to be your little woman waiting for you at home? He leaned forward and rested his elbows on his raised knees. I'm way more primitive than that. If you stayed home, I would never leave it either. That statement had her flinging herself into his arms, kissing him soundly. She looked at him after ending the kiss. In that case, you could quit your job and I can take care of you. Yeah, but then you couldn't quit. Yes, I could. He looked at her as his eyes narrowed. Well, my law job anyway. I consult for several hospitals and museums. I work on a few mental health boards, and I've written a few books. The last one was more of a mumble that he wasn't quite sure he heard. What was that? You wrote some books? Just a few. Not all ended on the bestsellers list. He flinched. Not all? She looked a little embarrassed by what she'd admitted. Half of everything we have belongs to each other, since I'm assuming Christian didn't set up any prenup along with his wedding plans. She remembered she'd have to have a little talk with her brother. He smiled and brushed her lips as he shook his head no. Her eyes hazed and she moved forward. Before they kissed, she pulled back and said a quick, I have to go, before she headed to the stairs. He heard her footsteps returning. She leaned into the door. And I'd love to meet for lunch. Call me and let me know where. He nodded. She blew him a kiss, and then she was gone. He still had some time before he needed to get ready. He looked around his room, suddenly feeling very alone. He needed to figure out a way to get her moved in today. No more time away from this woman than he had to. He needed to talk to Christian. He found his phone and dialed his number.